The issue of abortion has divided the United States in recent months. In June, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. That was the ruling that legalised abortion nationwide in 1973. June's decision triggered several states and lower courts to re-examine decisions and laws that restricted access to terminations. Well, the Kansas referendum was not about banning or restricting abortion, but about whether the state's constitution should explicitly state that Kansans had a right to an abortion. If the Republican move had passed and removed this, then their next move was likely to try to either ban or restrict abortion provision. Kansas is a conservative state which Donald Trump won easily in the 2020 election. The referendum was the first test of voter sentiment on abortion rights since that Supreme Court decision.
It was a resounding result and a cause for celebration for pro-choice advocates. 59% of voters chose to protect abortion rights in a largely conservative US state with ties to the anti-abortion movement. For some, the relief was palpable.
I'm super proud to be from Kansas tonight, and I feel like my state just showed up and boldly told me that they are going to take care of me and my female friends and everyone that can get pregnant in the state of Kansas. We are protected tonight.
Others saw the Kansas poll as an indicator that plans to restrict access to abortion are out of step with the public mood.
If abortion rights are protected here in Kansas, and again, Republican-leaning state, I think that indicates that there is a big, the states that have those trigger laws probably are out of step with what their electorate wants.
Abortion opponents who supported the proposed amendment said they felt an obligation to protect the rights of the unborn.
But when we pull back and look at the scientific evidence of what happens in that womb, not the emotion and not the fact that I feel like I'm losing something. The people that are losing life have no voice if people like me don't speak for them.
The strongly held views on both sides were reflected in a sometimes bitter campaign. But the decisive vote to keep abortion protections in the state constitution indicates a clear determination from Kansas citizens to protect women's rights.
Well, the White House issued a statement shortly after those preliminary results were announced. It reads in part, this vote makes clear what we know. The majority of Americans agree that women should have access to abortion and should have the right to make their own healthcare decisions. We can get more from DW's Stefan Simons in Washington. Welcome, Stefan. So this an unexpected win for abortion rights in a Republican stronghold.
That's unexpected times 2, times 10 if you like. Kansas is a ruby red state. Can't get any more red, more conservative than Kansas, they say. Here's what happened. We just heard it in the report. People, major turnout, by the way. 900,000 people went to the polls, and that is more than 4 years back from now. Before. The turnout had something to do with it, and that is also a clear indication for that Kansans didn't want any alteration to their constitution and wanted to remain in their constitution the right for an abortion.
Right, so what does this tell us about the effects of July's Supreme Court ruling?
Well, it's actually another indicator, an indication for what we already know through the polls, that 60 to 70% of the Americans, they really dislike the Supreme Court's decision. They didn't want Roe v. Wade overturned, and now they have it. Now it is at the states, and now, as you can see, as Republicans and conservative politicians, as well anti-abortion activists, will scale up their efforts through all the states in the United States to go on with banning abortion or further restricting abortion. There will be a counter wave now. At least that's what the Democrats expect.
Right. And what have the anti-abortion camp been saying about this particular result? It's, as you say, it sounds like this is far from over.
Yeah, they're shaking it off, so to speak. They're, of course, saying that this is not the result they had hoped for, but that they will try again and again and again. This is what this anti-abortion segment of the population in the U.S. and the politicians who work with them do. They chisel away over years and years and years, decades actually, until they soften up the ground, so to speak, and make then changes. So the Kansas conservative legislator will probably not rest and let this just be.
And are there more of these votes coming up across the states in the wake of that Supreme Court decision?
Yes, this will be rolling through the states, through kind of all the states. There are a few Democratic states that already said this is not going to happen. There won't be any referendum, and they are democratically controlled by Democrats, of course. But you can I can assure you the deep south of the United States, as well as other Midwest states, will have that same procedure. Maybe not a constitutional vote, but conservative politicians trying to change the law and push this through their legislature.
OK. Looking ahead to November's midterm elections, President Biden gave a prediction. We'll take a listen and come back to you.
The voters of Kansas sent a powerful signal that this fall, the American people will vote to preserve and protect the right and refuse to let them be ripped away by politicians. And my administration has their back.
Stephen Simons, does the president have a point? Is this likely to be an issue?
It's going to be an issue, 100% guaranteed. It has to be an issue, and here's why. Because the Democrats are actually hoping that it will, or working on that it becomes an issue, because this is how they can rally their clientele. This is how they can rally the troops against Trump, against conservative politicians, against Republicans, and the vehicle to do this best, as they figure out right now, or have figured out before actually, and now feel that they are that this is confirmed. They will try to frame abortion rights are under attack. You in your freedom and your liberty are under attack. Women's bodies, women per se are under attack with the conservative agenda. You need to come to the polls, midterm elections, and vote Democratic. So they'll use this politically. That's for sure.
All right. Thank you for that, Stephen. Stephen Simons in Washington. Well, Amy Littlefield's a Boston-based journalist for The Nation, and she focuses on reproductive rights. She told me more. She gave me her reaction to this surprise result.
I mean, it's an absolutely astounding victory. I think many of the people, the abortion rights activists that I was following during my reporting trip to Kansas, were optimistic, cautiously optimistic that they might win, but everyone thought it would be close. And this is just a landslide. It's an unequivocal message to Democrats and Republicans alike about the popularity of abortion rights, despite what the Kansas State Legislature and the Supreme Court might want to do. And so this is hugely significant. I think especially coming this close to the midterms, I think it's really clear that a sleeping giant of the pro-choice majority in this country has been awakened by the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I talked to a lot of people who were participating in
I'm interested in why you think it went this way. There was an unusually large turnout. Yeah. Now, do you think that this was a vote that crossed right-left lines? Do you think there were Republicans voting for this, or was there just?
Yes. I know there were Republicans voting for this because I talked to Republican women who were voting for this. I mean, I think, first of all, this election had been scheduled during a primary when turnout was expected to be low and heavily Republican, and clearly an enormous number of people turned out. I mean, turnout as high as 50% potentially. The population of Kansas is only 3 million, and they're estimating more than 900,000 people turned out. I talked to Republicans. I talked to one woman who was a friend of the assassinated abortion provider, Dr. George Tiller. She was voting in Tiller's former church. It was a precinct place. And she said, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, but I am voting no. She told me this very quietly. Right. I know there are Republican women out there who voted no, and Kansas also has a huge percentage of unaffiliated voters. 30% of the electorate is not affiliated with either political party. So I think it'll take some time, but I think an enormous amount of credit goes to the grassroots organizers on the ground in Kansas who were knocking doors, phone banking, people who'd never volunteered or participated before, who came out to participate in this campaign in this historic time.
So they got the vote out. And Despite the way that this vote has gone, Kansas is still not the world's most liberal state. Just give us an idea about the state of of Kansas's abortion rights as they stand presently.
I mean, abortion is heavily restricted in Kansas. You know, it's banned after 22 weeks. There's a 30-minute waiting period that has to be done between when a doctor conducts an ultrasound and when the process can go ahead. When I was in the clinic, Dr. Tiller's former clinic, which remains open in Wichita, Kansas, the counseling room has all these ministry certificates on the wall because the counselors either have to be licensed social workers or they have to be trained ministers. And so they've all gotten ministry certifications to do abortion counseling. So, I mean, it's actually heavily restricted, and they're dealing with an enormous influx of patients from Texas, Oklahoma, and surrounding states where abortion is no longer an option for those patients.
OK. Thank you for outlining that so clearly for us. Journalist Amy Littlefield in Boston. Thank you.